So these are just some important dates for this current legislative session. So we are currently in session through May 31st. That's the end. By that point, fingers crossed, we will have passed the bills we want to pass. And so this is just a snapshot of some key dates between now and then. So we just had a deadline end for when bills can be introduced. On the 19th, we're anticipating the governor's budget stage address. And then we have some committee deadlines. And what's most notable is that 31st adjournment date.
What does LRB mean?
So that's the Legislative Reference Bureau.
Okay.
Legislative Reference Bureau, LRB. So they are, it's a department of lawyers. They help write bills. They are responsible for filing them. And that's usually the department that, or bureau, that lobbyists and legislators are working with on bill text and amendments.
When you say bill committee deadline and then bill third reading deadline, does it have to have three readings? Say, if it starts in the House, if it has to have three readings, does it have to have three readings in the House before it goes to the Senate? And then it has three readings in the Senate? Is that usual? Because it said third reading deadline, and then it says committee deadline in the other chamber.
Yeah, so the committee deadline and we didn't really clarify which is House and Senate on this slide.
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, if it starts in the House, does it have to have three readings in the House before it goes to the Senate committee?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to, be read on,
So it is quite the lengthy process. And typically, once a bill gets to the third reading, it's pretty much locked in as is. No further amendments can be made. So
the vote is on the third reading.
votes on the third reading. So any amendments have to be done before that third reading. And let's say if a bill's on a second reading, amendments need to be made. It needs to kind of go back in the process. So it's that's why that maze is so significant. It's very, very drawn out.
Just out of curiosity, could something be introduced in the House and in the Senate at the same time and go to in parallel?
Yes.
Like you can in the US Senate.
Yes.
US Congress. Okay.
So the question is, can there be, and I realized for Zoom folks, there's a question whether a bill can be introduced in both the House and Senate simultaneously. The answer is yes. They'll have respective bill numbers and sponsors, but yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So policy vehicles, essentially this, we can just kind of go through this really quickly, but they'll become statute. There's administrative rules. Agencies will implement anything that passes that's under their jurisdictions. So there might be an agency policy, and then at the municipal level, there's typically ordinances. So I just want to breeze through this a little bit. And then for grassroots lobbying, the purpose of this slide is really just to impress upon this group that grassroots lobbying is extremely effective. Legislators want and need to hear from their constituents. Lobbyists have incredibly important jobs, but legislators really tend to move the most when they hear from their constituents. And so there are a number of different actions and vehicles and ways to engage elected officials, but whether it's picking up the phone or going to their office, writing letters, participating in a lobby day, all of those actions really do contribute positively to your elected officials, both education on issues, but also just recognizing, hey, this is where I should stand, because those that vote for me care about this and will hold me accountable later. Okay, so I want to get into the policy priorities. I first want to just start out. Yeah, we could start here. I want to start out with energy and transportation and just by way of level setting. So our building, transportation, and power sectors are the largest emitters, in the, entire state. And we've been working really hard to decarbonize those sectors in a myriad of ways. So back in 2021, yeah.
That, electric power, does that also include residential?
So electric power, at the end of the day, yes, but it has more to do with the grid and what power sources or energy sources are connected to our grid and being utilized. Then usually the residential side will be more along the lines of buildings. If that makes sense, like buildings emissions. But yes, it's all connected. So back in 2021, after at least 7 years, we worked really hard with the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition and a ton of our partners. We have Sierra Club in the room to pass the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act. It still today has not only served as a model for other states to pass carbon neutral and carbon free grid policies, but it actually continues to be a nation leading equitable climate bill. So I take a lot of pride in tracking the implementation of CEJA and seeing other states, and regardless of how amazing other states are doing at finally playing a little bit of catch up and passing their own versions of CEJA, we still are light years ahead, just on the equitable workforce transition components that we have built into this nearly 1,000-page act. And that's ensuring that workforce training programs and navigator programs are stood up in the most relevant and effective parts of the state. So
Have we hit those goals now?
oh, so we are just about 3 years, 3-4 years into implementation, and this is something that's going to take many, many years. So we are not quite, we're not quite there. This one's a little bit complicated in that a lot has been happening in the last 3 years between standing up workforce programs. So folks are getting trained in clean energy jobs, but also ensuring that there's more renewable and clean energy development across the state. And that the Illinois Power Agency is responsible for procuring renewable energy is sticking to a pathway that keeps us going towards our goal. So there's been a little bit of a slow burn, but because we're the first to do this, and we've needed to staff up at the state level to make all of this happen, things are happening. So community solar in particular has been performing exceptionally over the last couple of years. And we continue to see significant growth in solar. And job growth. We're also seeing some workforce hubs start to graduate their first cohorts. So in terms of what is in CEJA, I'm just going to bypass the slide for time. And I've been speaking to it a little bit, but this is a really nice slide just to get a snapshot. Just to get a snapshot of the financial side of what is in CEJA. So it has the financial resources to back standing up these new programs, and also ensure that there are rebate programs for transportation transitions, and ensuring that equity, of course, is at the center. So I just really like this slide for a quick snapshot. But in terms of what's next, so we passed the big thing, and that doesn't mean that clean energy policy or other policies stop. We got to do the big celebration, but we also get to continue. So next, ICJC is just short for the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition. I've mentioned them a couple of times now, and they introduced a platform, a suite of bills, called the Clean and Equitable Transportation Act, Clean and Healthy Buildings Act, Clean and Reliable Grid Act. So a suite of bills focused on decarbonizing the biggest sectors, and culprits of emissions in the state. So for a clean and reliable grid, I'm gonna spend, let me see if let me see if I have these. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna go through these kind of quick here. So for clean and reliable grid, at the end of the day, essentially what we're trying to do is upgrade our grid. So CEJA establishes the goal, it establishes a pathway, and what we need to do is update the infrastructure. We have incredibly outdated, like over 50 years plus infrastructure. And this will get us on a pathway not only to ensure greater energy efficiency on the grid, but updated transmission lines, new high voltage transmission, and also speaks to energy storage. So as we're adding more renewable and clean energy sources on the grid, ensuring that during off-peak times, so when folks are not using the most energy at one time, that we're able to harness and hold on to any energy that's created for later use when everybody is using everything.
Could you tell us about that map?
This just speaks to
An example of an interstate highway system.
what it is.
Yeah, I was staring at that map too. It was interesting. Is one example, but there are more, and maybe.
There are many
Yeah.
more. So just an example of, yes, an interstate system. It's essentially trying to illustrate that our transmission here in the state is connected in many ways. So like on the electricity side, we have ComEd in the Chicagoland area, and they're part of PJM, which is the broader national RTO, and then MISO, Midwest Intercontinental.
What is PJM?
PJM is just an RTO at the national level.
What is an RTO?
An
No,
RTO,
So
Pennsylvania, New Jersey.
this is the regional transmission operator, but these are the energy companies, the electric energy companies, that deploy energy throughout the country. So it's the national level, and then typically within each state or region, there will be kind of like a subsidiary of those parent companies. So PJM is the parent company to ComEd, for example. MISO is a subsidiary of Ameren. And you can kind of keep going on and on for other companies. But essentially the point here is in order to maximize renewables on the grid and get ourselves to meet our clean energy goals, we not only need to deploy more, but we need to make sure we have the infrastructure that's ready to harness that energy, and have innovative technologies like storage to be able to get us totally across the finish line. This one's just on energy efficiency. Okay, I want to go through these quick because of time.
Yeah, if I may, Samira.
Yeah.
Just so everyone understands, the Illinois Environmental Council it encompasses all kinds of environmental solutions, and this is just one of them. So we kind of want to get through everything in this session. Secondly, the League of Women Voters of Illinois and Chicago, each one of us, are members of IEC. So by virtue of that, you all are members of the Illinois Environmental Council. So details, we can get you all kinds of details. The waste specialists work with the coalition she's speaking about. So this ICJC, Bill works a ton with ICJC. He is our energy specialist. You're gonna hear about a coalition for plastic reduction that I, as the waste specialist, work a lot with. So we can get you all of these details. The important thing is to understand the scope of what's happening in the environment that IEC is working on. And that we as members have access to just a myriad of information and the ability to help lobby on these things. So that's the overall. So keep that in mind, and maybe if you could jot some questions so Samira can get through these slides and then we can like attack the questions would be great. Is that good? Does that help kind of?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm gonna get through energy transpo a little bit quicker. So we can get to some of the other priorities that I won't be spending quite as much time and detail on. But this is just around building decarbonization. So by way of level setting, we do typically have fossil fuels in our homes, as you all know. Gas and propane are used quite often. They're also not great for our health. They do cause emissions not only outside for the climate, but also indoors. There is noxious gas that is released that is terrible for our health. So we've really been wanting to work on building decarbonization, which essentially means getting away from methane gas and trying to electrify our building stock. So as part of the Clean and Healthy Buildings Act, we're really working to ensure that buildings, future buildings are decarbonized, really starting with new construction. And also ensuring that there is a clear pathway to get there where, everyday residents aren't necessarily experiencing high bills during that transition period. Currently, the Illinois Commerce Commission is going through a series of public workshops to develop a report that should come out by next year in 2026. And that workshop series is around the future of gas. So they're developing a pathway and a plan for decarbonization for the state as well. So this is just about the cost savings of moving over to clean heat technologies like a heat pump. And then a couple other notable priorities that we have. So also as part of the Clean and Reliable Grid Act, we're also touching on municipal electric utilities and cooperatives to ensure a couple of things. One, transparency. Residents of those customers of those types of utilities understand and have a way to know what the utility is procuring in terms of types of energies, and also ensure that they're starting to plan longer term. So for utilities like a ComEd or an Imran, they are required by the state to submit long-term renewable resources procurement plans and other long-term plans to essentially say, hey, this is what we plan or what we anticipate demand to look like. And so we need to have this much energy on the grid in this period of time. And muni co-ops don't do that, and they're not required to do that. So it's very hard to push them in a direction to switch from fossil fuels to clean energy. So transparency is really important. And then the solar bill of rights piece is just ensuring that folks in muni co-op areas have the right to build solar on their homes when they're interested. carbon capture sequestration, Mohammed Aquifer protections. We just passed a carbon capture sequestration protections bill this past year. It's the first regulations in the state for CCS, which has to do with pipelines and sequestering carbon. They can be very dangerous if there is a leak or an explosion. So having regulations of where those are located is incredibly important. And we are now working in tandem with other partners like Coalition to Stop CO2 Pipelines and the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition to ensure that there are additional protections around waterways like the Mohammed Aquifer, which has a development proposed nearby. So just want to ensure that drinking water is safe. So transportation, this is part of the Clean and Equitable Transportation Act. In short, oh, okay, those slides didn't come up, that's fine. But for Clean and Equitable Transportation Act, we're really looking at reducing pollution on the roads, increasing public transportation and mobility options for folks, as well as trying to support closing and avoiding the fiscal cliff that's impending with the regional transportation agency at the state. They are in a deficit, in an anticipated deficit, and it's really, really important that they have the funding needed so that we don't lose our public transportation options across the state. And there's also a clean car standard, but this is also just to ensure that we're starting to decarbonize our vehicle stock to more hybrid and EV options. Okay. So environmental justice is something that's at the core and heart of everything that we do. You may have noticed we don't have EJ as one of our 6 issue areas because it truly is a part of every single priority that we have. It's an overlap. And we have been working on both environmental justice air permitting, which ensures that it's really focused in the city of Chicago, but we are working with our local partners there to look at the cumulative impacts of heavy industry in environmental justice communities and ensuring that heavy industry can't continue to just popping up by right in those areas, and that there is an assessment to understand what the emissions impacts and health impacts are of essentially like planned development areas and heavy trucking that may be nearby. And then monitor air pollution from commercial shipping facilities. This one is really just focused around warehousing and heavy diesel trucks that are going in and out and often end up in environmental justice communities on roads that they shouldn't be. It's kind of a chronic issue. Okay, finally got to zero waste, Claudia, you know. So really, I'm personally really excited. We've been working with the Coalition for Plastic Reductions. All right, I just kind of realized I'm in the way here. But we've been working with Claudia, League of Women Voters, the Coalition, CPR, Coalition for Plastic Reduction, to work on some, not only zero waste, but also plastics specific reduction bills. So and I just want to say the reason why I'm excited is because zero waste is often kind of overlooked in policy. And so the fact that we have so many bills this year is amazing. Polystyrene. So very excited that we're able to work on a polystyrene ban at the state level. A little self-explanatory, but the foam containers that you get and take out would essentially be prohibited. And we would ask that they move to more sustainable options and or that there be a culture change too, with folks bringing their own containers. PFAS, this one is a little like both plastics and water. So forever chemicals, just ensuring that there are protections and bans around, PFAS. So once those enter our waterways, they are there to stay. Reduce landfill methane emissions. This is another really big emissions culprit in the state. Illinois ranks 9th in the country for landfill emissions. It's really important that we keep as much waste out of landfills as possible. Because the more that they fill up, the less we're gonna be able to use them in the future. It takes like 30 years to establish a landfill. So once they're full, I don't know that we necessarily want to keep building these things versus just ensuring that we're creating less waste. And then opposing chemical recycling. This one has a few different overlaps. I think a good example, well, it's really just ensuring that any creative chemical forms of recycling are not prioritized. We don't necessarily want to create more emissions, more toxins in various creative recycling processes, just in the name of being able to reuse a product that may be hazardous. Am I missing anything?
No. Very good.
Okay.
We can buzz through by 3:30 the rest of this.
Great.
Just kind of highlight.
Yeah, okay, so we're gonna go really fast for the next couple minutes. Open space and conservation. Ooh, wetlands. All right, so there was an EPA or a Supreme Court case that rolled back Clean Water Act protections for wetlands. And we have been fighting to ensure that that these really special bodies of water in the state are protected regardless of that federal ruling. It's been the tough uphill battle, but one of our biggest priorities just in terms of the conservation work that we do. Right to recreate on Illinois rivers. This one's kind of interesting. I don't think I need to go into it for this group, but there's a debate whether folks should have a right to use parts of waterways that may go through private property. Okay, agriculture, nutrient. Okay, fair. For agriculture, we have a couple of policies that are just focused on herbicide and pesticide reduction. We want to ensure that when it rains, the land is not running off all of that toxins into nearby waterways, other food sources, etc. And then in terms of good food, this is just ensuring that we're able to incentivize more local grown food and create pathways for food to table opportunities. Good example is like farm to school lunch programs. And then water and climate resilience. This is, okay, I have PFAS here again. And then microfiber filtration. This is another sweet spot between water and plastics, but this is around ensuring that washing machines will have a filter to prevent from synthetic microfibers entering our waterways. So it's kind of a fun one. And then just to kind of close us out on topics, federal funding impacts. This is a really hot topic right now. This could be an entire session on its own, and I don't know if it was earlier today. But I just wanted to highlight the bottom lines here, that as horrible as all the things we've been hearing about have been, executive orders are not baked in policy. Progressive Caucus here in Illinois has to take the lead to ensure we can continue to make really big state level progress on our climate and justice issues. And then ISC is working on tracking funding from the federal to the state levels, all across the board. So we're trying to better understand both here from our partners, where there may be some capacity constraints if there is funding at risk, for organizations, but also for any programs that we've been watching, like EV rebates are getting pulled, and also just seeing where other programs funding may be in the pitfall. So just to flag for you all that this is something we're keeping an eye out for, and if you have interest in learning more about the latest, please feel free to connect with us. Okay, so finally, to close us out, what's next? We have lobby days coming up that you can get involved in. We have soil health on the 5th, March 5th, plastic reduction with CPR on March 20th.
The CPR.
Coalition for plastic reduction.
Oh.
April 9th, conservation, and then May, we're still figuring out the date, but this is climate action, and that's usually where we focus more on the energy transportation work.
Cute slide.
Yeah, I love it, baby. So that's it. Thank you all for your patience. I know it's like end of day, it's been a long one, and I ended up going a little in the weeds on some stuff, so thank you for your patience.
So, Sarah, go ahead with the question, and I wanted to kind of wrap that up a little bit.
Yeah, do you know the bill numbers for the water bills?
Yes, let me circle back with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Just, it's a quick one. The Progressive Caucus that you mentioned second to last slide, how often does that change, or who is that? Cause it's always said to me, but I'm not certain what the Progressive Caucus is.
Yeah, I can get you a list, or at least I'll be able to kind of provide a breakdown. But
And they are
essentially-
appointed people in that caucus, or?
No, this is more like more fun, like,
like an affiliation group.
yeah, it's essentially the elected officials that come together on a shared interest or shared,
Cause,
yes.
There's a green caucus, there's a progressive caucus.
there's, and it's
on a-
fluid, it's as needed as you wish.
Yes,
Can you check with the folks at home, if they can hear? Yes, can you check with the folks at home, can they hear?
Okay,
can folks on Zoom here?
folks on Zoom, can you hear these questions, or do we need to repeat them?
We can hear them.
We can hear them.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so basically what I want to share with those in the room and on Zoom is, we have a Google group that the specialists that are all under the climate and, environment, specialist area on the Illinois League, we send out information. And the truth is, we do a pretty good job on the suite of bills for energy and transportation, because we have a climate specialist who works on that. We do a pretty good job when it comes to plastics, because we have a waste specialist who deals with that. We have a new convert that's really helping us with the whole composting and food safety and food rescue. So you're gonna hear a lot more about those bills. We have Laura Davis, who double teams with criminal justice, who's been really great about keeping everyone up to date on the wetlands. We have Sarah Burry back in the corner, who is our water specialist that will keep us up to date on anything water going forward. We do not have anything in agriculture, so we would love to have someone who's excited about agriculture to join. And you don't need to know anything, we'll grow you up. That's how we all did this. We just jumped in and said, sure, we'll help. And there's plenty of ways to, get teams around you. So we'd love help on the specialist end to be able to handle some of the bills we can't even think about. Conversely, we would love you all to join the Google group. And Bill, I'm gonna have you read out your email address if you don't mind, because Bill sets everybody up on email. Can you put it in the chat?
Put it in the chat.
I'm gonna have Bill put his email in the chat. And that way you all have his address, and you can let him know if you want to sign up for the Google group, and we'll get you signed up, and you'll get the action alerts on these bills. You'll find out where they are. We'll get you
I
the,
won't see the group chat.
we'll give it to you in this room because you're
Okay.
here.
Okay.
But those in the chat, we'll do that when we get done. We'll
You're
just give
gonna
you his
send
email
out the
address.
chat, right?
Okay, so you can sign up for the Google group and stay abreast of what we're working on. You can sign up to do more and, you know, help us in these issue areas. The other thing that the league does, because we are not an environmental organization, we are an advocacy organization. We do pick and choose. So for instance, I help with the Coalition for Plastic Reduction and I, you know, represent the league on that, but not every bill is necessarily going to be picked up by the league to lobby on. But you can still come and lobby on Plastics Day on all of the bills we're going to run. So if you want to get rid of plastic bags, which the league hasn't picked up yet, but I pretty much think they will, you can lobby with us on plastics. So there's so many ways to do this. The issue is get on this Google group, communicate with us, raise your hands. If you want information in your local leagues, we can send you information. If you want us to talk to your local leagues, we can come talk to your local leagues. We need our army to stand behind us and help us get some things done. So we're hoping this just gets you really excited that there's people paying attention and that the league cares. And there's ways to get you what you need locally to do what you need to do, and then also to support statewide. So any questions with that generally? Okay. I'm gonna look quickly in the chat. Bill answered that one. There aren't any bill numbers to send right now for that question. As soon as we have them, that the Illinois League is going to support, we will get them all out to you. You will get general action alerts in the news you can lose. News you can lose. And then you'll get in the Google group, they do allow us to say this, the Illinois is not going to be lobbying on this, but if you're interested, here's an action alert. If you as a person want to take this on. And of course, if you as a local league want to take it on, that's fine. The state only does, well, I mean, we can't do everything. So you can get it that way.
I also just mentioned the reason why we don't have bill numbers for many of these, because as we saw earlier, the bill introduction deadline just wrapped. So we are waiting for bill numbers, and also they're coming in real time, so we'll be able to get the full list of that.
I want everyone in this room to know, though, we have a QR code hot off the press. I got it about 10 o'clock last night. That's on the environmental table. You can take your phones, snap a shot, and let your legislators know if you're behind banning polystyrene foam foodware in the state of Illinois.
Nice.
That one has been endorsed by the league. We've worked on it for the last 3 years, so we are good to go with that. We have a bill number and a QR code, so run out there and snap a shot. Those of you online, trust me, those action alerts will be coming out as soon as we have, you know, everything pulled together, and you will be able to do them. So you're not missing out on anything by not being in the room. Right, I don't see any other questions in the chat at this point. If I may, energy people, I just want to call out, there was something on that slide about community solar. And you know, those of you, anybody who has an electric bill in the state of Illinois, anyone who has an electric bill, pretty much a lot of places, can sign up for community solar. So if you just go to CUB, Citizens Utility Board, and they have all kinds of companies you can sign up with. I can tell you, I've done it since 2021, and between 10 and 50% of my electric usage comes from a solar farm, and I get 10% off on that because I'm part of it. It's an easy thing to do, and you still get your stuff from ComEd or Amaron or whoever. So you don't have any issue with that. So I just wanted everybody to know that's an option, because it's a really cool thing to
What's
do.
the option that you had then, where you had sources of all these?
CUB, Citizens Utility Board.
Okay,
So you can either type in CUB or Citizens Utility Board.
Cubs are okay.
Yeah. And they will give you all the different companies, because there's lots of them you can do. You can decide which one you want to connect with. I just wanted to call it out because people think, you know, if they're a part of an, you know, apartment or a condo or something, they can't have solar panels, but you can sign up for community solar. So that's a really good track. Yes.
Are all communities connected to a farm or not?
No,
Right?
You still get your delivery from your
Yeah.
current
So-
provider.
I don't believe
And that may be, that's why you have to go to Cub, you have to figure out if it works in your area. You gotta speak up, I'm sorry. Do we have the mic? Yeah, just because we can't hear you.
So Naperville gets its electric energy through a muni co-op, IMEA, and because of the contract that we have, we are not eligible for any type of community solar. So for example, if you are ComEd, if you live in Downers Grove, you can get community solar and you can do a variety of things. And if you live in Naperville, or if you're in a community with a muni co-op such as IMEA, you may well not be able to do that.
So this is why you have to go to Cub and you have to go through the process of, is it available in your area and who are the suppliers that you can contract with?
And the reason I'm interested in Cub is because I get inundated by electrical companies who want to take over my electricity.
That's different.
Yeah, that's right, that's why I'm
That
not
is
playing.
very different. You also can choose to, unless you're in these muni areas, to find another electrical supplier. That is different.
Yeah.
That is actually turning, who's sending your electricity to your house. So be careful with those. That's a little more complicated. I'm scared to death about it. Community solar means you're just supporting a solar farm and basically you're getting credits towards whatever's coming into your house. So
And Cub is a helpful resource for
very
both of
helpful.
those, both
Yes.
of those routes.
Yes, ma'am.
I wonder if I could just make a statement. I don't have a question, but I need to say something. If we were in Texas and we were talking about energy. If we were in Texas and we were talking about energy, we would not be leaving out gas and oil because gas and oil is is a very important pollutant in Texas. And here we are in Illinois, which is the most nuclear state in the union. And we have more nuclear power plants than any other state. And we get a lot of our electricity from nuclear power plants. And a lot of emissions, nuclear is not clean, it is not carbon free, and we are not even mentioning nuclear. And so I want to make that as a statement because it's important and it's something that should not be left out of discussions of energy. And can I say one more thing? And that is, I went to the fundraiser for the IEC this year, and one of the honorees was Pat Richard, who is with the Eco Justice Collaborative, who is, the Eco Justice Collaborative is very material in preventing carbon dioxide pipelines from coming through Illinois and I believe South Dakota and coming down through here and storing carbon dioxide underground in Illinois. That is such an important issue. And so please forgive me for saying all this because it is off topic from the subject here today, but it's of vital importance to Illinois to realize that we are the most nuclear state in the union, and to go talk about energy in Illinois without talking about nuclear is surprising. Thank you, Samira. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. Thank you for that.
If you
This
don't,
was at a higher level. I could have gone into a full what our energy mix is, and that just wasn't the direction for today, but on the CCS side, Pam and Eco Justice Collaborative are absolutely the folks working with us on the Muhammad Aquifer
oh, yeah.
protections.
Yeah, you
and
did mention the
processes,
Muhammad
yes,
Aquifer, which is,
regulations. Yeah.
it's one of the issues that is, it's one of those issues that makes me crazy. So,
It's definitely very important, yeah.
Do you know what percentage, like, I just read the other day that the US in general produces about 8% of its power through nuclear. I don't know if that figure was. France, in contrast, the most nuclear power of any country, at least on this list, is like 30 to 35%. Do you know where Illinois is? Like what percentage of our power is produced?
I think it's 40.
Top of mind, you may be right, top of mind, I haven't checked the numbers for this year, but they're usually the majority of our power does come from nuclear. We do have potential to harness of wind and solar
And
at a utility scale and geothermal, yes.
So 40%.
That was my impression.
Wow,
I think you're right.
Yeah.
wow, sorry, I just wanted to say it out loud for the Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah, but also on the nuclear piece, just without getting too off track. The state did, well, just in terms, I also wanted to mention the mini co-op solar piece that was talked about earlier. But with nuclear, brand new nuclear projects are banned or not allowed in the state moving forward because it takes so long to build them, and we really want to ensure that any investments are going into renewables. So small nuclear reactors, which is small nukes, are permitted moving forward, but the larger projects aren't.
But they're not small.
Oh, no. And there was something in the news about China and visions that are fusion just recently that very interesting. And scary.
Is all interesting. I did want to just go back really quick though to the Naperville comments around mini co-ops and community solar. So the solar deliverance that I had mentioned, and I do recognize the league hasn't like vetted IEC priorities either, but just want to bring out the solar bill of rights piece is specific to ensuring that residents in mini co-ops would have the option to have solar. So that would be great. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you go back to the dates for the lobby days? I think it was just on the lobby days. I think it was a previous one.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just gonna say, write down the lobby days or take a snapshot of this, but the league is gonna have a lobby day. We just don't have our date set yet. And we will lobby on the Illinois agreed upon environmental bills at that lobby day. At these lobby days, it's going to be everything that's encompassed. So, if you go to plastics, it may be more than what the league is advocating for, whereas the league might only advocate for 2 bills or maybe 4. Don't know yet. So, yes,
So these are just IEC.
these are
IEC
IECs.
lobby days, they're not the League of Women Voters lobby day. So that'll be announced and that'll be different. They may have different issues that they're lobbying on. Is
Right,
that
and those
correct?
lobbies will be everything, criminal justice, education, will be a suite of things we're going in as a league and lobbying on versus these are issue areas, they're specific to an issue. I see a hand.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, can you guys give us an estimate of how much of our funding comes, of present programs comes from the federal EPA? Just like how much of this, how much could we be impacted if he shuts down all of the EPA?
Well, a lot.
I mean, I'm just like wondering how, because it seems like we have really good state programs already in place, but I'm just wondering how much of our funding is.
I think that remains to be seen, and I think that's what you heard before, that our legislature and our teams are working really, really hard to figure out how to sue back and to deflect and to not panic.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at now. Jobs are being lost, that's a fact. But hopefully we can claw that back when things settle and the court cases happen and, but yes, we are it's a big transition period for the environmental team in Illinois. So anything we can do is, advocates and volunteers is going to help too.
Absolutely. And it's not gonna be an easy answer to that question. There is some funding that is already in the bank in the state, which means the federal government can't touch that if they do end up rolling back. So it's also a little bit new. Like there are some programs that should be fine, and we're in a space of trying to figure out what's at risk versus what is okay.
Because they said they were going after the Great Lakes, our Great Lakes initiatives, the EPA group. So I guess we can expect that we're a target.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I was just on a call yesterday, EPA Region 5, that's
Right.
here in Illinois. They are trying to figure out what's happening around job security and not. And we as IEC are attuned and trying to work with them to figure out the best way that we can support them. So we are in a little bit of an up in the air moment in time where I really wish I could direct you all and say, do X, Y, Z, but we're kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern. I will say though, the number one thing around all the federal unknowns right now that any one individual can be doing is speaking to your elected officials, your US representatives, for the state, and reaching out to them and just saying like, I care about these issues that are at risk, or I care about these programs that are at risk of losing funding, so that they can continue to fight for us.
So along with that, thank you. You can follow it up the next week with, here's what it's like you to work on.
There you go.
Yes.
that Google address?
That, it's, you can.
Put it in the chat.
Hang on, Bill, we have the sign up sheet at the table, just come give us your email address and we'll put you on it. You in the room are easy. What else did I promise you in the room? Oh, Bill's email address. Okay, all right, is everybody on Zoom good with their questions? I think we are good to go.
Thank you, Samira.
Thank you.